So this is Kissblade making another Advent Guide build order video. The last video I put up, I may have to redo at some point for that build order because I know there were some audio issues with the game volume basically being much louder than the mic, just a quirk of OBS taking the internal sound to my understanding and me not recognizing that at that time, so I apologize for the poor audio quality of that video. Seems that there were actually some views, and folks actually were still able to make out what I'm saying, so that was great. I was actually intending to take that down at some point, and I just forgot. But this is a video of a replay where I'm going to talk about what to do as Advent when you are forced on the edge position, in other words, the aggression position, in 5s. This is not a build order I would use for any other position. And what I mean by any other position is, so if we take a stock of the map right now, I'm spawning over here, and the rest of my team is kind of laid out in this manner, right? So it's over here, so I'm here, red is here with my ally, our center eco is orange, and then we have another side aggro as blue, and then another aggro position as also another Advent player, okay, yellow here. And then I'm against green here, who's Avarice, quite a capable player, and filled out the rest of the lobby with, I would say, like roughly like average, slightly above average, slightly below average skill level in terms of this lobby, and likely roughly either a little bit better than the typical public lobby that you may encounter in terms of just competency. So yeah, overall, I'm not really gonna go like through the entire replay of this game. It's not really that exciting, but I will go over the build order and some of the kind of like decision points you should consider when you're playing like from this position. So let's take a look.
A colonizable planet
So
has
to
been
start things off, the
discovered.
typical thing: max out mining, then max out credits, because of the
Our
fact that
minds
you'll be
awaken.
in a bit of a crunch with your metal and crystal, because essentially the unit of choice for early game Advent essentially is just going to be this Tempest right here. And Tempests are really good because they're just versatile, but they do require micro and against certain unit compositions. And what you're really looking to do with Tempest is to take leverage the fact that they fire at 360 firing arc and try to use them to either outflank your opponent's ships that requires them to turn and fire while your Tempest doesn't, or you sort of kind of kite them around and hope that like your opponent sort of splits off units in a way that trails off to chase you, and then you're going to pick them off as they're chasing you, which really increases your DPS efficiency. If you just kind of like stand and shoot with Tempest, they actually don't do that much better than, say, Disciples. They're just really a little more bulkier, which is their main selling point, and you're not really going to leverage them too much. So I would only recommend that when you have like overwhelming mass. Okay, so as a result, in this scenario, what I would start off with, initially a civil temple, followed by a hostility temple or your military temple. So this way you're going to actually have 1 and 1, and you kind of save your level 3 just kind of like as a little bit of a flex pick. So like later on down the road. And usually your level 3 of choice is actually going to be this hostility one when you are in an edge position. Edge position, unfortunately, as Advent, you don't really get to have really a whole lot of fun in the game, mainly because you're going to be stuck with a very poor eco and also very low tier tech. So you're going to be building Tempest for a long time until like basically the situation stabilizes. In addition, I would suggest, once again, this is the test branch, so I would recommend opening with the Rapture. And the main reason why is, once again, you have this nice power spike here at Malice, which basically will be like your game changer. So on the Rapture, one thing I should mention is that this starting item is actually pretty darn useless on the Rapture. Like, yeah, it scales your Malice by like 1 extra percent. Once again, kind of like meaningless, but you'll notice it does nothing for your Dominate, it does nothing for your Vertigo. We're never going to be touching Vengeance. I don't know what it does for Vengeance either, but we're never going to be touching it until like this Rapture gets to like level 8. So I would just recommend getting rid of it right off the bat, and you get some, nice money back just to help just a little bit further. In addition, in 5, one of the things to keep in mind is that you are likely going to now start getting feed from your eco position early on to basically try to like help you push through the other aggro who's also likely getting feed. So speaking of aggro, let's just kind of like take stock also of the map and see how things look. So right away, what I would notice is that I would say like actually Avernus got a little bit more unlucky than me in terms of the start. I have a more flexible expansion path, whereas he's kind of like single lane, and then this is kind of a little bit ugly. So the key point of contention is going to be obviously this asteroid right here and this asteroid right here, mainly because of the fact that this asteroid kind of leads to the gateway here for all my core worlds. This asteroid is kind of like a choke point where it serves to get really easy, like a 2v1, whoever is actually holding here. So the dominant side manages to get here on like as a pairing, then this asteroid is very critical. So in some ways, this asteroid being here is kind of to Avernus' advantage because his purple ally is just 2 jumps away from it, so it's very quick to reinforce. He's only 3 or 4 jumps away from it, whereas I'm significantly a lot of jumps, and also my ally, red here, he's very far from me. So as a result, I recognized pretty early on that, hey, I'm probably going to be in a 2v1 position. And as a result, ideally, I would like to hold this asteroid like ASAP, because otherwise, if both of them make its way up here and somehow manage to get through this asteroid here, I'm going to be in a little bit of trouble because they could start pressuring me pretty hard, and red's going to not be able to get to me very easily if you look at where he kind of spawned. So with that in mind, I'm going to take a more conservative approach when it comes to expansion, but also a fairly aggressive one in terms of how forward I am moving. Okay, so we're going to start off with now 1 and 1, as I mentioned, with the with the civil one being the first one of interest. And of course, my first skill up, you right-click all of these skills, so this way they don't auto-cast when you skill them up, and you get dominate.
A colonizable
and then from
planet
there
has
on,
been
the
discovered.
typical, what I would recommend, 5 disciples just to start things off to help you clear a little bit faster. And then depending on your planet layout, maybe like up to about 9 to just kind of add some extra early firepower. Okay, so this part not much excitement, so we're
Civilian structure complete.
this part for a
Our
little bit.
forces have engaged
There's
the enemy.
standard clearing stuff.
Harmony
I see it
research
here,
tier
like,
complete.
this is really nice.
Harmony
Give me, like,
research
600 metal.
complete.
I can also sell,
Hostility
so another
research
thing
tier
is I can sell
complete.
this blue
Another planet
right here
joins the Unity.
to the market for a nice 750 cash infusion as well. So kind of helps just get that extra little bit of things going. In terms of early research priorities, if you watch the previous video, as I mentioned, almost always, if you have some sort of minor faction access, influence is going to be very critical. As aggro, the main thing you're going to really want to be interested in is Chronos for the Gauss, and just going for the calling nanites. And then if you can really think you can kind of like, against certain comps, if you get away with it, you might want to go with this boarding crew as well. If you see like, oh, hey, there's like a nice Arca, or there's a bunch of LRNs I would like to steal that I think I would want to get rid of. I would say it's a little tricky to go for the boarding crew when you're in the aggro position, mainly because that nanite to get like some critical early forward bases are
A
really
colonizable planet has been discovered. Mining upgrade complete.
Okay. So of course I have this ice here, so then
Our
ice
forces
is
have
going to be one of
engaged the
my,
enemy. Our
research and
forces
choice,
have
but that was
engaged
also
the
after
enemy.
picking up
Your
desert
arguments are
colonies,
compelling.
because they're
I
desert
shall stand
colonies
with
is
you.
nice for that permanent
I will deliver your
income,
order
which adds quite a
personally.
bit over time. And then the key at tier 1 would be selective harvesting for the extra bit of crystal, selective harvesting 2, and then also at some point you do want to pick up divination, and you definitely want to pick up this Unity Awaken for the clairvoyance scout.
Harmony research complete. Hostility research
Alright,
complete.
so we finish hostility 1, and you'll notice I'm still stuck at 1-1 right now, and you may wonder like, hey, why not build at level 3 right now? Like, why not, already start? And And the reason why is because you just can't. You might not be able to afford it in terms of what you're going to plan on doing with it anyway. Like, yeah, it's only 200 crystals right now, but you know what? This is also 250 crystal, and right away now you're like 150. You're only left with 150, and so if you're stalling it, one nice thing is you can start building Tempest right away already at this point, which you're going to see that I believe I am queuing up already at my home world. Which will help you also clear stuff neutral faster, and which just helps with that little bit of extra XP. And you can see 2 Tempests being queued up is already 160 credits, so it's quite a chunk of change for the time being. So I don't really need anything right now, but I do start
Let the
up.
bidding commence.
I start up
Our forces
my
have
Hostility 4
engaged
lab
the
at
enemy.
home. Because I
Harmony
decide, you know
research
what,
complete.
I will just start building it because I'm going to commit to a military 1-4 build at this point, which is the build I'm trying to show you. Okay, so once again, standard clearing stuff. I do get a Javelin that's kind of nice, helps me push some extra pressure against caps early on.
Hostility research complete.
No bid. You missed out.
No bids on my end, and this might have been a slight mistake. A winning bid of 1 for that Crystal Infusion is worth it in my opinion for an aggressive position, but I just didn't know if I was going to win it or not.
Mining
I guess some early
upgrade
feed,
complete.
which is great,
Harmony
but
research
very likely
complete.
my allies
Another
my
planet
opponents also
joins
need
the
some early
Unity.
feed, so kind of like
Planet item
so.
ready. Hostility
And at this
research
point,
complete.
because of the fact that I have those
research
extra
complete.
templates,
Hostility
build
research
templates are
complete.
very nice at
Alright,
auto
you twisted me
clearing
arm.
with your disciples.
Our forces
They have
have
good damage,
engaged the
but
enemy.
they're also kind of bulky, so like you don't really have to worry about them. They have a nice spread of health. You can see there, 150 durability, and the extra hit points. So that's kind of the main reason why I would still prefer Tempest over Disciples at this point. Because Disciples, yeah, they do have that nice damage, increase, but it's only 2 extra damage, and then and when you're looking at the Tempests, they're already base without, you're not factoring, if you don't need the actual pierce really, you're also looking at already 16 compared to 8.2, and then in terms of hit points, you can see it's not really much of a comparison, it's not even a comparison in terms of durability. So Disciples are just kind of too flimsy for me still, so I prefer Tempest.
Mining upgrade complete. A
So once again,
colonizable
same idea
planet
here.
has been discovered.
This constant
Hostility
clearing. I
research
misclicked
tier complete.
and I accidentally stole
Planet
Cobalt
item ready.
with my Dominate. If you recall from my previous video, I generally recommend stealing Gardas from these neutral stacks because Gardas really decrease a lot of DPS that your stuff is that your Rapture is able to do when it's, especially with solo clearing, because of the fact that it has Strikecraft and it has missiles. So the Gardas will kill the Strikecraft, it'll start blocking the missiles, so you're losing a lot of your damage if you don't steal it. And if you do steal it, the nice thing is you have that extra boost to your PD as well, which Advent is sorely lacking, of course, in our early game.
Harmony
So
research
I do manage to get
complete.
this
Another
asteroid
planet joins
as
the
a choke
Unity.
pretty early on. You can see
Another
because
planet
of the free
joins the
logistics, I'm gonna
Unity.
start off with
Desecrators assault our world.
Now, my opponent Avrith, he does a very nice anti-Advent opening here, and he goes for a double cap. And this is actually one where I started thinking, you know what, I might be in a bit of trouble against this opening, because I actually didn't do the right opening against the double cap. And this is kind of what makes Advent versus Asari kind of nice. There's a little bit of a mind game here. Against double cap, basically, it just means that you have to give up ground a lot early on, because Advent just cannot fight it can fight the egg, no problem, but it cannot deal with the core toll at all early game with any of their caps. Okay, so you can try with the Radiance, but you're gonna still lose. So as a result, you kind of have to just steadily yield ground and try to get them to your closer towards where you can set up a secondary supply line, and they are stretching your supply line. So then this way, your fleet can kind of like jump past them and sort of cut off their supply lines. Because as you can see here, Avareth is still over here. He rushed past the ice and very aggressively went to already pressure this choke. So this is like a great play from him. But because he had to do that, then the best place for him to set up anything would be over here. And you'll notice he has to set up nanopacks assemblies, which are for the non-cap ships. So that means these are the only 2 cap ships I'll ever have to deal with for a long time. Alright? So after a while, the impact of these individual cap ships are going to be way less. Because we will have more and more smaller ships that will gradually, their damage will add up against cap ships. But this early in the game, the only thing that can really pressure the cap ships is this Javelin. I'm really actually regretting at this point now, looking back at this replay, that I didn't get the boarding party earlier, because then I could have had 2 Javelins from that asteroid derelict here, and that would have actually let me contest this double cap ship opening. So anyway, I see this portal, and I just immediately decide, okay, you know what, there's no point in me contesting this. I cancel my lesson factory, because it's not going to finish getting built, and why take that unnecessary shield damage? And this is an important thing to note about PvP, that I think when I was new, I was making this mistake a lot, which is treating like, hey, I know this is an important choke, so I just gotta fight for it ASAP. I have some ships right now, he doesn't have that many, I might as well just fight him for it. But really, like, if you look at this, like, these disciples, they're really not gonna deal that much damage to any of this stuff here, besides the skirmishers. Same thing for his Tempest. So like I said, it's only really going to be this one Javelin, which, you know, it has good damage, but let's look at what the portal has right off the bat. It's got, like, the guns aren't even comparable, of course, to what I have right now. So it just makes no sense to stay with any of my stuff. So instead, I think
A
I'll try to
colonizable
kite
planet
to
has
take
been
off a
discovered.
skirmisher, and then
Our forces have
I do
engaged
get
the enemy.
all 3 of the skirmishers, so
Civilian
this is
structure
kind of nice.
complete.
And then from there on, I come back, see if he's still around, you know, see what his kind of play is. Notice that he's giving the planet asteroid over to purple, which is once again another good play, which signals, hey, I'm getting double teamed. And as I mentioned, my ally kind of spawned quite far from me. So, which means then my play here is going to have to be try to stall. And hopefully get him to, like, kind of be baited in to a very extended supply line route, because as you can see, the further he is from here, then the further his reinforcements have to actually travel. Whereas if I'm fighting, say, like, over this ice, and I set up my factories here, which you can already see me do immediately as a reaction, and then I have my factories still here, and then potentially I might even set up some factories here as well, which I don't do at this point. I decide, like, hey, you know what, I think I can defend at this ice if I just get some Gauss turrets here, which is once again why the Gauss is very important, because Gauss can help you contest the cap ships. But here, I couldn't get that Gauss up in time because he was just so aggressive and very fast. Like I said, skipping this ice directly to here was very, very smart of him.
A colonizable planet has been discovered.
So, as I mentioned,
Civilian structure
here,
complete.
retreating
Another
to
planet
this
joins
point,
the
and as you can
Unity.
see, at this point, I ping my allies,
Commencing
tell them,
phase
hey,
jump.
if you have the influence,
Defilers
toss down
encroach
Gauss.
upon
My
us.
allies are really
Our forces have
pretty quick at
engaged the
responding.
enemy.
Communication is very, very important. Like, don't just say nothing. You know, if you are saying, like, hey, can I get Gauss when they're already at your home planet and hitting you, not very helpful, right? That they're not just coming way too late. But if you tell your ally really early, which is when, as soon as I was over here and I saw Aver, I told them, hey, can we Gauss this? Your allies have time to get that influence and have time to respond, put them down.
Our
so you can
forces
already see,
have engaged the
they already
enemy.
start putting them down.
Commencing
and at this point,
phase jump.
This
Hostility research
is
complete.
no longer contestable for him. He can't push
Let
it.
the bidding commence.
So he goes back, and I
Your
begin
influence
fleeting
is
here.
undeniable.
Okay?
You've made
So
a
let's review
wise
what are some
acquisition.
key texts.
A colonizable planet has
So
been discovered.
first, as soon as he
No
hits tier
bid.
4,
You missed
you are going to
out.
be still building off Tempests from this 250 supply. So as I mentioned in the previous video, as you're researching tier 4, you ideally want to hit this, and you want to hit this, which is for your 2, obviously powering up your Tempests. And then once tier 4 researches, I would recommend getting these 2 in whichever order. It's kind of purely preference. It doesn't make a huge difference whichever one you get. They don't make a big impact right now because your ships are just too few to take advantage of them. Maybe shield burst is slightly better because the damage rate that comes on in is a lot lower, so you can actually then leverage shield bursts on some of your smaller ships. Whereas late game, later on, or even mid game, the shield burst for smaller ships is completely pointless, and it's really only up to your cap at that point. And then, of course, the main reason we really want tier 4 is this 500 supply and this 1000 supply, which is what I'm going to aim for next. And then after that, you can pick up this shield, missile damage, and also as extra luxury, these armor as well, if you can. But definitely the missile damage and the shield. And once again, I would say like my recommendation is the missile over the shield first. But as long as you're picking them up in the same like relative order, it's not going to be a huge difference either way. I think this was maybe a little bit ambitious. I went for tier 2 civil as well because I could tell like, hey, this might be a little bit of a grind here, and I might need that extra econ. I don't think I'm gonna be able to leverage really getting this tier 2 civil to kind of pay off anytime soon. Because really the key things I would want from tier 2 civil, they're so expensive. They're gonna be this booming city, there's gonna be this telekinetic separation, and there's going to be this temporal communion, just basically all of which is intended to kind of like ramp my econ. But hey, you know, like I said, this was a bit of wishful thinking. You never know.
Planet has been
so
discovered.
I made this call,
Hostility
but
research
I would say
complete.
it probably was.
Logistics upgrade complete.
So once again here,
Army
Everest
research
does
team
something
complete.
pretty smart. He
Defilers
knows that like
encroach
I
upon
can't,
us.
I still can't contest
Desecrators
it yet.
assault our world.
And I have pinged my allies to
Army
kind of like
research
put turrets
complete.
here. I can see they're already setting them up, but this is way too. This is at this point I pinged them and I realized it's probably too late. You can also see here I actually try to build a defense as well in anticipation, but he was pretty aggressive. So he realized that hey, I'm probably like trying to defense this up. So, and if he bombs this out, I just can't contest it right now. So what I choose to do is then I said, okay, you know what? I know you're gonna go here. I can't contest you here. In fact, it doesn't even make sense because it's gonna take me too long to get here. My hope is, can I kind of draw you in? So in other words, I'm gonna jump here. And if I jump here, I know that purple's just beginning to fleet here. And my fleet is actually pretty sizable at this point. You take a look, right? 28 Tempests, 17 Disciples, a Rapture, and some mind control units, as well as some queued up units. So this is actually a pretty sizable force, and the only way for him to really push me off here is if he actually decides to go back. Okay? If he decides to jump back here, I think it actually would have been a pretty bad play for me to deal with at that point. Or rather, it would have been good for him and pretty bad for me. So my hope is actually he kind of calls my bluff and he goes here. And the main reason I kind of want that is because, A, first of all, I can reinforce to this point at any time. He can't take my homeworld because I know at this point red is at least able to get to my homeworld from where he is. He's not necessarily going to be able to get all the way over here without some, you know, footwork, but he can get here pretty easily. He can set up a forward base at any of these points to then immediately keep reinforcing. So that's my hope. Okay, and if he does do that, then I know I have the superior fleet to push out purple from here. So you can see
Harmony
exactly
research
what I do.
complete.
And
Defense
purple
upgrade
basically
complete.
has to retreat any ships that he comes out of here. Like he basically needs to realize that okay, this is not really defensible by just building ships, because any ships being built here is going to feed XP. The other bonus of me being here, and which is why I think it was a pretty critical mistake that Avras chooses to go here, is then no reinforcements from this planet are getting through anymore. So at this point, I actually, believe it or not, I already started having a very confident feeling that I kind of already won this flank. Because I just thought that this was a very critical mistake. Like, yes, this hurts my eco, but once again, as you can see, I already signaled to my ally, hey, let's see, I want him to come here next. Let's put some turrets up, just to also, like, you know, stall him a little bit further. And sure enough,
Defilers encroach upon us. A colonizable planet has been discovered.
So he's able to get a third cap ship through.
Desecrators
That's fine,
assault
not a
our
big deal.
world.
As I said, so I'm trading. I take this asteroid, which once again, as I
Our
said, this
forces
is
have
a critical
engaged the
asteroid.
enemy.
And you can
The
see here
Unity
why.
has fallen silent on one of our planets.
I lose this civil lab. It doesn't matter because, as I said, I don't think that civil 2 tier 2 was an option.
Done and dusted.
And you can see, I'm using Gauss on cooldown. Okay, and the next place I put my Gauss, of course, homeworld, because after he takes the asteroid, really there's no choice for him anymore. He either has to go all the way back, because now what's the fleet up here is no longer capable of contesting my fleet here anymore.
I will
Right?
deliver your
50
order
Tempest,
personally.
25 Disciples, Rapture, level 4 Rapture, versus 17 Skirmishers, 2 cap ships, and one of which is a Marauder. So that's not happening. In addition, the thing about his core toll and his actually his other ship didn't take too much damage. You can see the core toll that I said you just can't win against. It's already taken a significant amount of damage. So now at this point, I'm not afraid of the core toll at all. I mean, it's got only a hole left. So yeah, Avras is realizing, okay, I need a different, front point. So he builds factories here, and I believe he later is going to start building factories here as well. But at this point, I started being very convinced that, hey, I think I got this at this point. So what do? Of course, as I said, I no longer care about what's over here, because Red now can fight and deal with the quote-unquote cleanup of the situation here. And sure enough, Red does, right? Because you can see here, this is actually a relatively even fight because I have a Gauss here. And arguably, I would say this is a winning fight because he has a level 3. So, and a level 3 core toll versus a level 3 and no core toll here, this is definitely going to be a win from Red's side, right? So, as I said, at this point, as far as I'm concerned, this part is clean up for Red. And I'm just going to push with my fleet against Purple, who I also know will have a smaller fleet. Why? Because he has 2 factories here, which means he didn't count on needing to have more factories back here. So we look, sure enough, no factories here. So his supply line's probably coming all the way from his home world, which is, as you can see, exactly as expected. And this is going to be a long time before he gets any numbers that is of any relevance here. So immediately I can come here, pressure these factories, kill them all.
Hostility
Which means
research
no more factories
complete.
from here.
Defense
So
upgrade
now,
complete.
at this point,
Military structure complete.
Avarice is stuck. This fleet is trapped. These are essentially like complete bait now, because he really cannot get any more reinforcements. And heck, if I really wanted to, I could swing all of this back, go back up, and just clean them out. But that's not the right play. If I do that, I actually give up the front left momentum. So instead, as I said, I keep here and I
We have
pressure.
cleansed the planet of heathens.
And you'll see
Hostility
how
research
much numeric
complete.
advantage I
We
have
are entertaining
over,
offers.
and why the cap ship, as I said, really strong early on, but at this point, not going to make much of a difference, right? Look at this. 30 Disciples, 51 Tempest versus 19, 7. Purple should not even have tried, in my opinion, at this point. This was one, he had way too much confidence in the Animosity, Plasma Nova combo to swing
Our
it.
forces have
And
engaged
as
the
you can
enemy.
see, it makes
Another
no
planet
difference.
joins the Unity.
Like, he
Research
takes a
room
lot of
upgrade
damage
complete.
from this, and of course, this part is
You
just going to
opted out of bidding.
Hostility research complete.
So
Done and
he can't even
dusted.
tank any further. He realizes it's a bad idea. I was
Hostility
thinking, hey, maybe
research
I could even kill
complete.
him, but because my Radiance is here now, and my Radiance here is level 5. Start bombing this out, and now, as I said, remember how I mentioned this is a very critical choke? Well, you know what? Now I have the choke, and I can actually handle the 2v1, because as I said, there's nothing from green that's going to be coming in this direction anymore, so it won't be even a 2v1, because green now is essentially thinking, oh crap, I gotta commit here, right? And it's just a bad commitment, because as I said, his caps are stronger, his core toll was already wounded from earlier, so really, like, yes, he might have a extra cap ship, but that cap ship is actually more of a liability at this point. You can't rely on it. You can't trust it. So, as you can see,
Our
he realized,
forces
okay,
have engaged
I
the
got bail
enemy.
from that asteroid.
You won us
Maybe
over
I'll
with your
try to
fancy
from here.
words.
And once again, and I think this was once again just
We have
probably
cleansed the
not
planet
it.
of
I
heathens.
get where what he's
Another
thinking.
planet
That
joins
like
the
he's
unity.
gained some ground, he's got to make something happen, and maybe purple can do stuff against me. So basically, it becomes like red fights him here, and purple fights me here. But it was not like I think he should have realized that this was a losing proposition. I don't think there was much he could have done either, because if you try to retreat back, 2v1s me at this purple, red chases with him, and we still win the 2v2. So at this point, you can see, I'm thinking like, hey, you know, maybe he has stuff out here. I didn't have him fully scouted, so maybe he has this ice and he has factories here.
Hostility
But I
research
went there and
complete.
checked and noticed there was
Moving
neutral
into
garrison
phase
still,
space.
so then I was like, okay, I'm gonna come right back. And I come
Defense
back, and sure
upgrade
enough,
complete.
purple comes back.
Defilers
and
encroach
probably
upon
clairvoyance
us.
me, saw me leaving, and so
Our
unlucky for
forces
him,
have
he
engaged
immediately
the
realized,
enemy.
I came back. And he
An
took a bunch
allied
of
world
money.
has fallen to the enemy.
So, and
Civilian
then once
structure
again, at this point,
complete.
setting up
Done
more
and
forward base
dusted.
here. And now we're going to talk about another very important tech for the aggro position, but you want to consider getting it at some point or another anyway, which is this one right here, factory repair. Okay, and this factory repair basically makes your lesser factories act as a repair base, which is great as an aggro player because you're just going to have a lot of lesser factories. Because why? You probably noticed by now at this point, I have only stuck on this cap. I haven't built any other capitals. Just don't have that luxury. There is a triple capital or multi-capital opening I can show you as Advent, but I would say it's definitely weaker than a lot of other factions because Advent cap ships at level 1, no items, are pretty crappy. Actually, don't let people fool you thinking Advent cap ships are great, especially for people who are not on current live patch, are complaining or maybe raving about the Halcyon. Halcyon's not as good as folks think, okay? And a level 1 Halcyon in a duel against any other cap that are meant to be fighting from any other faction is going to lose, and it's going to lose really bad. So I don't recommend a multi-cap opening except in very niche scenarios, such as if you're rushing a pirate player and you get the exotics to do so, then I would recommend it because you can basically stock up on these boarding crews to steal their early Corsairs and basically just kill them off their freebooter timing. And that would be like the only instance I could really think of where I would recommend it as an aggressive player opening. So anyway, so as I said, a little bit of a side tangent, but this is very, very important for tier 2. Simply because of the fact that you're going to have a lot of lesser factories and you're going to be fighting over your lesser factories, but the lesser factories are also areas where you can contest. You can bring your cap ships back, and then any forward positions that you take, you can start putting on more lesser factories, which serves both as your repair bases, but also for new forward stations, which is just overall really good. So yeah, that's really, I think, about it. It's in the 30-minute mark. The rest of the game kind of will play out as I mentioned to you, which is, as I said, to me, the moment Green made the decision to jump here, I think the game was kind of over because this was basically an overextension and covers for the main weakness of my spawn, which is the fact that it takes red a very long time if he wanted to go over here to this asteroid. So this asteroid would have been very hard for me to defend in a 2v1. So, for example, if I rest stations here, maybe he grabs this and gives it to purple and they start 2v1ing me here. This would have been pretty tricky for me. The fact that he managed to get here was actually really bad for me because if he stationed here just long enough for purple to say set up 4 factories here, I think the game would have been much harder for me. Because at that point, purple sets up 4 factories here, I build up a good amount of fleet here. even if Avarice goes here and I have a very large fleet, I'm kind of stuck here. I can't move the fleet from here to here and to try to contest them here, because then purple from here can jump me at any time with the fleet. But because he went so early, I have a very large fleet now that if he jumps back, he will lose to me. Purple jumps to me, he can't contest because purple's all the way back here because I managed to jump here and kill all his forward factories. So purple trying to contest me from here is basically going to be just plain suicide. So yeah, as I mentioned, the game plays out, kind of as I already explained what it was going to play out. I eventually get the Malice to level 6, and that basically swings the fight. In fact, it even got to a point where pink, purple, and green wasn't able to handle my fleet supply because I just had so much, and my position, like at this point, with a stranglehold, the 5 lesser factories. I also built up a bunch of defenses. I got my allies to put Gauss turrets here. So this asteroid basically became a death trap for them. And also, you can see this asteroid was also the gateway to any of these players. So from this asteroid, we can make plays here, we can make plays here, and there's nothing they can do to stop me, right? So yeah, hope this replay review helped. I believe I rambled a little bit too much, but hope you guys learned something. All right, take care.